The headline on the cover of Forbes called me a boy wonder, a tech titan with a net worth in the billions. But at that moment, in a sterile white hospital room, I was just a guy peeling an apple, my hand shaking like I had Parkinson's. Evelyn Reed opened her eyes and looked at me, her gaze terrifyingly calm. "Cole, are you done making amends yet?" And just like that, I lost it. All I wanted to know was whether she still took her coffee black from that one damn diner we used to love. I'm Cole Hayes, and I was standing on the edge of the spotlight, feeling like the main event. The people circling me dripped flattery from their lips and brandished calculations in their eyes. The Forbes reporter had just left, the afterglow of his camera's flash still warm on my face. They called me Mr. Hayes, the new kingmaker, the industry disruptor. But the hand holding my champagne flute was ice cold, and my heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. 10 years, Evelyn Reed. I chanted her name in my head like an incantation. They say time heals all wounds. Bullshit. In front of her, my supposedly stoic heart still behaved like a golden retriever puppy, seeing its owner for the first time. All that carefully cultivated C-suite authority? Gone. I was just a coward in a Tom Ford suit. And then she appeared. A cool, bright light that sliced through the noise. Evelyn was the same as ever, dressed in a simple white dress, minimal makeup, yet she outshone every sequin and jewel in the room. Someone next to me whispered, "Look, it's Dr. Reed." Her face was just on the cover of Nature. I heard she's the lead on that new national defense project. She gave a slight nod, acknowledging the greetings, her eyes scanning the room with a calm, detached air. When they passed over me, they didn't linger for even a fraction of a second. She looked at me the way she might look at a lab sample, the conclusion already written. Specimen offers no significant data. My stomach dropped. Just then, Grant Adler sidled up to her, a champagne flute in hand. Custom-tailored suit, hair slicked back with military precision, and that signature, professional grin plastered on his face. He leaned in, murmuring something that made the corner of her mouth twitch upwards. It was a polite, fleeting curve, but it was enough to sting. I took a deep breath and walked over, the opening line I'd rehearsed 1,000 times ready on my tongue. "Evelyn, it's been Excuse me," she said, turning to me, her expression polite but distant. "I have a meeting with Mr. Adler to discuss a project collaboration." Her words were a brick wall, slamming into me and leaving me speechless. It felt like I'd just submitted a 10,000-word dissertation only to have the professor toss it back with a curt, "Not what I'm looking for," in front of the entire lecture hall. Grant extended a friendly hand. "Mr. Hayes, I've heard so much about you." The subtext in his smile was clear to anyone with a pulse. "You don't stand a chance. Some guys look like world beaters on the surface, but behind the scenes, they're probably using a default PowerPoint template. Not me. I came up the hard way, but at least my taste is my own. I know better than to gift a woman something in millennial pink." I shook his hand, applying a bit more pressure than necessary. He didn't flinch, that plastic smile never wavering. Defeat, embarrassment, and a toxic cocktail of jealousy and resentment coiled around me like kudzu. I don't remember how the rest of the gala went. Back in my sprawling, empty Tribeca penthouse, sleep was a foreign concept. I pulled open the bottom drawer of my desk and took out an old metal box. Inside were yellowed letters and a few faded photos. In the pictures, we were wearing our high school uniforms, grinning like idiots who had the whole world figured out. The Evelyn in those photos had stars in her eyes. The Cole in those photos was a first-class asshole. What was the final straw? Was it the time she spent a little too long talking to the captain of the physics decathlon team, and my possessive, teenage brain went into overdrive? Or was it that fight before the SATs, when she was drowning in stress, and I picked a fight over nothing, throwing ugly words at her? The worst part was, I knew I was wrong, but my stupid pride wouldn't let me apologize. Youth is wasted on the young. Whoever said that must have been writing my biography. My phone rang. It was my best friend, Leo Martinez. "Dude, I heard you ran into the goddess herself at the charity thing last night. How'd it go?" "Not great." "Knew it," Leo said, a note of schadenfreude in his voice. "Dr. Reed is a legend, man. The untouchable genius. Half the guys in Silicon Valley have tried and failed. I hear Grant Adler's been making a serious play, funneling resources to her lab, setting up academic exchanges." He paused, his tone shifting to something like pity. "Cole, you're playing on nightmare mode this time. Throwing money at it won't work. That cheesy crap you pulled in high school, trying to rent out the whole ballpark for her, would probably get you a lecture on antitrust laws today." After I hung up, I stared out at the glittering expanse of the city. Anxiety and regret washed over me, but underneath it, a different feeling sparked to life: resolve. I opened my laptop and sent a message to my assistant. Compile a complete dossier on Dr. Evelyn Reed. Last 5 years of published papers, research focuses, media interviews, public appearances, and personal interests. Everything you can find, and keep it legal. She replied instantly. On it, Mr. Hayes. In business, a project fails without a clear objective. Back then, my objective was she belongs to me, childish and selfish. Now, my objective was I want to be better with her. Time for a new business plan. Operation Win Back Evelyn 1.0 was officially a go. Know your enemy. Know yourself. To win back an ex, you need to approach it with the same rigor as market research. My research revealed that Evelyn spent every Wednesday afternoon reading at a quiet coffee shop in Greenwich Village, near NYU. I carefully curated my outfit, a cashmere sweater that screamed understated taste, and timed my arrival for the perfect coincidental encounter. I pushed open the door and saw her immediately. She was sitting by the window with a gray-haired professor, a mountain of papers between them, their conversation peppered with jargon I couldn't begin to understand. I felt like a tourist who'd wandered into a PhD defense. I slunk to a corner table, pretending to scroll through my phone while straining to hear them debate the stabilization of quantum entangled states. In high school, I fell asleep in class to avoid physics. Now, I was faking my way through a latte just to overhear it. Life really is just one long exercise in paying back your debts. The chance encounter was a bust. Attempt number 2, a gift. My research indicated she was working in a niche field and a key academic text was out of print worldwide. I pulled some strings, threw some money around, and managed to secure a copy. I had it sent to her lab with a simple note, just my name, Cole Hayes. I got a notification from my banking app almost immediately. It was a transfer from her for the exact market value of the book. It was followed by text. Thanks for the trouble, Mr. Hayes. My mentor already gave me a copy. Please accept the payment. Her rejection was surgically precise, leaving no room for ambiguity. Professional. Another failure. I leaned back in my office chair, looking at the payment notification. I wanted to laugh or maybe sigh. The old checklist for getting a girl. Looks, money, game time, and, well, I had the looks, sort of. I was working on the game. She clearly didn't care about the money. Time? What CEO has time? I had to make it. It was clear that conventional tactics were useless. I closed my business reports and opened my browser, typing in the core keywords of a research field. It was time to get educated. A few days later, digging through an obscure European university's online archive, I found a decades-old paper and a set of raw experimental data that was highly relevant to her current work. I compiled it all and sent it to her public university email address from an anonymous, encrypted account. No name this time. After I hit send, a tiny flicker of hope ignited in my chest. Evelyn was in her lab, analyzing a data set, when the anonymous email arrived. The attached paper and data made her eyes widen. It was incredibly useful. It might even solve a bottleneck that had been plaguing her for weeks. Who sent it? She frowned. Her intuition pointed to one person. She tried to trace the email's origin, but the IP address was routed through a series of public proxies. A dead end. Whoever it was had covered their tracks perfectly. She pushed the thought aside and refocused on her work. A few days later, Grant Adler hosted a small, private academic mixer. He chose an exclusive, members-only club and invited a curated list of young, brilliant minds and a few senior figures in the field. He called Evelyn personally. Evelyn, I've invited a few heavy hitters from the National Science Foundation. It could be very beneficial for your project. At the event, Grant was in his element, gliding between guests, dropping technical terms, and showcasing his connections and expertise. Evelyn listened quietly, offering a few polite responses. During the open discussion, the conversation turned to a cutting-edge technical problem. Grant tried to dominate the floor, proposing a theoretical model that sounded flawless on the surface. That's when an unexpected voice cut in. Mr. Adler's theory is elegant, but it seems to overlook the practical issues of cost and efficiency in application. I stepped out from the periphery, holding a glass of sparkling water. All eyes turned to me. Grant's face darkened instantly. From a tech industry perspective, I continued, my gaze sweeping over to Evelyn, who was now watching me with a slight frown. You might consider borrowing concepts from distributed computing and edge AI to optimize the data processing pipeline. It would reduce the dependency on a single, high-performance computing node. I laid out my idea, referencing a few real-world examples from my own company's products. That's an interesting angle, Evelyn thought, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Could be him? No. How would he know about this? Grant's internal alarm bells were screaming. Cole Hayes? What's he doing here? And how does he know this stuff? He's sabotaging me. The room was silent for a moment before an older professor nodded. Mr. Hayes's cross-disciplinary approach is quite insightful. The conversation reignited, the atmosphere suddenly buzzing with new energy. I saw Evelyn's gaze linger on me for a few seconds, a hint of inquiry in her eyes. In an age where you pay for knowledge, sharing it for free is the ultimate power move, especially in front of your rival. It was like bringing a tactical nuke to a knife fight. The mixer wound down, and guests began to leave. I was about to slip out when Evelyn walked over. Her expression was still cool, but there was something new in her eyes. That anonymous email. Was that you? She asked, direct and challenging. My heart skipped a beat. I met her gaze, tried to appear casual. Yeah, what do you want? Her voice was even colder now. Just helping out, I said, looking away from her piercing stare, my tone deliberately light. I saw you might need it, and I had a way to get it. No other motive. Mature and stable, I told myself. Project mature and stable. Evelyn watched me silently, trying to gauge my sincerity. Just then, Grant reappeared, positioning himself naturally beside her. Evelyn, let me give you a ride home, he said, his tone gentle but proprietary. He then turned to me, his smile turning to ice. Mr. Hayes, Evelyn needs a quiet environment for her research. I hope you won't be a distraction. It was a blatant warning, a clear marking of territory. I smiled back, meeting his glare. You've got a long reach, Adler. Anyone who didn't know better might think you were her agent. His face tightened. I took a step closer to Evelyn, my voice low but sharp enough for both of them to hear. I get it. Business is business, and personal is personal. But if someone tries to mix the two, if they try to use business to screw with someone's personal life, well, I tend to get protective. The air crackled. The smell of gunpowder was thick between us. Evelyn stood in the middle, her brow furrowed, looking from me to Grant and back again, saying nothing. In the end, Evelyn didn't get in a car with either of us. She walked to the curb, hailed a yellow cab, and disappeared into the stream of traffic, leaving Grant and me standing in the fallout. Watching the taxi's taillights vanish, I felt a familiar pang of defeat mixed with a new, hollow kind of disappointment. Grant let out a cold huff, adjusted his tie, and stalked off, his back rigid with suppressed fury. My phone buzzed. It was Leo. Man, that was a hell of a showdown. Adler looked like he was about to pop a blood vessel. But Dr. Reed's reaction. She's like Fort Knox, dude. I managed a grimace and texted back, tough crowd. He wasn't wrong. The walls she'd built around her heart over the last 10 years were thicker and colder than I'd ever imagined. Back at my penthouse, I sat in the dark, replaying the night. I'd scored a point against Grant at the mixer, using his own game against him. But the look in Evelyn's eyes wasn't curiosity, it was caution. A full frontal assault would only make her retreat further. Time for a new strategy. A campaign of hearts and minds. You can't win a war with brute force alone. You need tactics. This wasn't a hostile takeover. It was a long-term strategic investment. I opened my laptop and started digging. Evelyn's National Research Lab was trying to import a suite of high-end equipment, but a critical component was held up in customs due to some bureaucratic red tape. I made a few calls and found a third-party nonprofit foundation with the right clearances. I made a sizable, anonymous donation to the foundation, specifically designated for a grant to her lab. It cleverly bypassed the red tape and solved the supply chain bottleneck. The entire transaction was buried in paperwork, with no ties leading back to me or my company. A few days later, Leo called. Cole, that move was next level. It's like being a secret benefactor in a Dickens novel. What's the end game? Peace of mind, I said quietly. Hers. I hung up, a sense of rightness settling in my chest. Meanwhile, Evelyn noticed things at the lab were suddenly running smoother. The equipment requisition that had been stalled for weeks was inexplicably approved. Resources that were once impossible to secure were suddenly available. She wasn't an idiot. Nothing in life is free. She knew there had to be someone pulling strings behind the scenes. She tried to investigate, but the trail went cold at the foundation. Grant, of course, wasn't idle. He had connections in the university's oversight committee and started creating petty obstacles for Evelyn's team. He'd delay the approval of a routine progress report or raise passive-aggressive questions about her team's budget at a review meeting. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. Nothing lethal, but deeply aggravating. Then he escalated. He got his hands on some ambiguous, out-of-context data and took it to one of the lab's key corporate partners, hinting that Evelyn's research was built on a shaky foundation. The partner got spooked and sent a formal letter, requesting a temporary halt to the collaboration pending a full review of her team's findings. That one hit its mark. The project was stalled, and team morale plummeted. The pressure on Evelyn was immense. She had to produce irrefutable data, and fast. This is when we have to be methodical, she told her team, her eyes sharp and focused. The data doesn't lie. But then, disaster struck. In the middle of a critical validation run, a core piece of their experimental apparatus failed. It was a highly specialized instrument, and the replacement part had to be imported. Evelyn immediately contacted the supplier, but they were evasive, claiming the part was backordered and wouldn't be available for at least 2 weeks. 2 weeks? The project would be dead in the water. Evelyn's stomach sank. This felt too convenient. A discreet inquiry confirmed her suspicions. Grant had bribed the supplier's U.S. distributor to hold the part. The atmosphere in the lab was grim. Dr. Reed, what do we do now? One of the junior researchers asked, his voice tight with anxiety. Just as Evelyn was trying to figure out how to contact the manufacturer in Germany directly, my phone rang. It was Leo. Cole, that son of a bitch Grant is playing dirty. He's blocked the replacement part for Evelyn's lab. My blood ran cold. What's the model number? Manufacturer? What's a malfunction? I asked, my voice clipped. Leo rattled off the specs. I hit the intercom. Get my heads of engineering, supply chain, and legal on a video call. 5 minutes. I turned back to Leo. Keep an eye on Grant. I want to know every move he makes. On the conference call, I didn't waste time. I don't care how you do it, but that part needs to be a doctor. Reed's lab by tonight. Find a substitute. Call a factory in Munich. Bribe a shipping clerk. Throw money at it. Throw people at it. All hands on deck now. As it happened, my engineering team had a few wizards I'd poached from that exact field. They analyzed the failure and identified a custom-built, non-standard component from a research institute right here in the U.S. That would not only work, but would be an upgrade. My supply chain team worked the phones, and legal drew up an expedited contract. A few hours later, a message from Leo. Dude, it's done. Part's on its way. Sent it via anonymous courier. I looked out my window at the city lights and finally breathed out. Leo sent another text. You're like her guardian angel, man. Except you're the one footing the bill. Shut up and get back to work. I typed back, but I couldn't stop the corner of my mouth from turning up. At the lab, a security guard brought up an urgent courier package. Inside was the critical component, a higher spec model than the one they'd ordered. Everyone stared. Who sent it? No idea. The shipping label is blank. Evelyn picked up the part. Her expression, a complex mix of emotions. The timing, the precision, it was too perfect. It had to be him. But she had no proof. It doesn't matter who sent it, she said, her voice steady as she pushed her suspicions aside. Let's get it installed and running. Now, the team scrambled into action. After an all-night marathon session, they had their new data. It was perfect, bulletproof. The next day, Evelyn walked into the corporate partner's office with a new report. She laid out the data, and their concerns evaporated. They apologized profusely and promised to resume the collaboration immediately. The crisis was over. Back in the lab, the team was celebrating. But Evelyn stood by the window, watching the traffic below, a deep sense of unease settling over her. If it really was him, what was his game? This unsolicited help, was it kindness, or was it another form of control? She was grateful, but the feeling of being secretly managed, of her life being arranged by an invisible hand, made her deeply wary. On my end, once Leo confirmed the problem was solved, a weight lifted from my shoulders. I didn't call her. I didn't try to take credit. Helping her wasn't about getting a thank you. It was about clearing the obstacles from her path. As for me, my fight was elsewhere. In the real world, love isn't enough. You need power. Otherwise, your love is just a burden, or worse, a joke. I turned my attention back to my company. If Grant Adler wanted to come after my people, he'd better be ready for a war. I had my assistant pull every piece of public data on Grant's portfolio and his firm's vulnerabilities. The counterattack was about to begin. A few weeks later, it was Evelyn's birthday. Leo informed me that Grant was planning something big. He'd rented out a lavish private club and invited everyone who was anyone in their field for a massive birthday party, ostensibly themed as a celebration of Dr. Reed's research breakthroughs. The man had all the subtlety of Sledgehammer. He probably thought that with enough champagne, applause, and public pressure, he could propose and she'd be cornered into saying yes. Women love big gestures, Leo. After tonight, she's mine, Leo quoted, relaying what Grant had been boasting to his cronies. The contempt in Leo's voice was thick. I just scoffed. He didn't know the first thing about Evelyn. She didn't want a 10-carat diamond. She wanted a bowl of hot soup at 2 a.m. I was the one who hadn't understood that back then. Now I did. I checked Evelyn's schedule. On her birthday, she was slated to give a critical online presentation to an international symposium. She'd be prepping all night. Grant's party? She was never going to be there. That evening, Grant's party was a sea of glittering gowns and sharp tuxedos. The only thing missing was the guest of honor. Grant pasted on a smile and worked the room, but his face grew tighter with every passing hour. Meanwhile, Evelyn was alone in a small break room at her lab, staring at a PowerPoint presentation on her laptop, her brow furrowed with exhaustion. At 10 o'clock, there was a soft knock on the lab door. A delivery guy in a helmet handed her an insulated bag. Delivery for Dr. Reed. Evelyn frowned. She hadn't ordered anything. She opened the bag. Inside was a container of steaming matzo ball soup, with a small dish of dill on the side. Next to it was a glass of warm milk and a small printed note. Good luck. Don't forget to eat. No signature. Evelyn froze. The soup. It smelled exactly like the soup from that old Jewish deli on the Lower East Side, the one they used to go to in high school. The deli that had been torn down years ago. That taste. How was it possible? Her heart felt like it had been gently nudged. Memories she had deliberately buried began to surface, unbidden. Her eyes started to burn. Grant's party became the joke of their social circle. The grand gesture fell flat, his surprise a one-man show. Enraged and humiliated, Grant blamed me, convinced I had somehow manipulated Evelyn into snubbing him. He began plotting his revenge in earnest. Evelyn's presentation was a massive success, earning praise from her peers around the world. Afterwards, she sat staring at the empty soup container and the anonymous note for a long time. Finally, with a deep breath, she picked up her phone, found the number she hadn't contacted in a decade, and typed a message. She wrote and deleted it several times before finally sending just a few words. Thank you for the delivery. It was the first time since we'd reconnected that she had reached out to me. I was staring at a quarterly budget forecast when my phone lit up. I saw the text, and my heart hammered against my ribs. Holy shit. She texted me. She texted me. Calm down, Cole. You're CEO. Act like it. Don't be an idiot. I stared at the message for a full minute, a tidal wave of elation crashing through me. Then I took a deep breath, my fingers hovering over the screen. Yep, I typed, then deleted it. You're welcome. Too stiff. Delete it. No problem. Glad you liked it. I hit send, then tossed my phone onto the desk and pretended to focus on the budget, a massive, uncontrollable grin spreading across my face. On her end, Evelyn felt a pang of regret as soon as she'd sent the text. Why did I do that? But at the same time, a strange sense of relief washed over her. Just as I was basking in this tiny victory, my office door flew open. Leo rushed in, breathless and panicked. Cole, bad news. Grant is making a move. My brow furrowed. Spit it out. He's using his family's capital, leveraging his VC connections. He's launching a hostile takeover of Wallace Manufacturing. Wallace makes 40% of the core components for our new product line. If he gets control, our launch next month is dead. He's trying to cut us off at the knees. My gaze turned to ice. The warmth from Evelyn's text vanished. Fine. Grant Adler, you just signed your own death warrant. I slowly sat up straight, my eyes like chips of ice. What are you panicking for? My voice was unervingly calm. This is nothing. Remember the three of us crammed in that basement apartment, living off ramen while we waited for our seed funding? Leo stopped pacing, took a breath, and nodded, the panic in his eyes receding slightly. I hit the intercom. Get the heads of ops, engineering, PR, and legal on a conference call. 5 minutes. I looked at Leo. You too. The screen in the conference room lit up with the concerned faces of my leadership team. I got straight to the point. You've all been briefed. Grant Adler thinks he can choke us out. He's about to find out how wrong he is. Operations. Activate our agreements with backup suppliers B and C. Pay whatever premium they ask for. I want production lines running. Engineering. Run compatibility tests on the new components. I want an optimized integration plan by morning. PR, get ahead of this. We're about to be hit with rumors of production delays and cash flow problems. I want you to counterpunch. Leak the news about that big European contract we just landed. Make it loud. Legal. Prepare the paperwork to fight a malicious acquisition. The orders were clean, decisive. The team sprang into action. This is what 10 years in the trenches had taught me. Business is war, but the guy with the biggest checkbook doesn't always win. Information, timing, loyalty, those are the weapons that can turn the tide. A pedigreed MBA like Grant wouldn't understand the art of a street fight. After the call, Leo lingered, his expression still grim. Cole, the backups will hold for a while, but the cost will kill our margins. And what about Walt Wallace? I'll handle Walt. I cut him off. Just then my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered. Mr. Hayes? It's Walt Wallace. The voice was gravelly, tired, and laced with something I recognized immediately. Fury. Walt, I heard what's happening. That Adler kid is a piece of work. Thinks his daddy's money gives him the right to treat people like dirt. He came to me with his offer, talked to me like I was something he'd scraped off his shoe. I've been in this business a long time, Mr. Hayes. I believe in a handshake and a fair deal. His whole approach. It's just ugly. I want you to know, I'm going to drag out this process as long as I legally can. He's not swallowing my company whole without a fight. He paused, his voice dropping, and I may have recorded some of our conversations. Him talking about how he was going to manipulate the market to tank your stock. Might be useful. A slow smile spread across my face. An unexpected gift. Thanks, Walt. I owe you one. Forget it, Hayes. I respect a guy who built something from nothing. That Adler punk? I can't stand him. I hung up, a new sense of certainty settling in. Grant, you think you have this in the bag? The game is just getting started. Leo leaned in. Did Walt just flip to our side? Loyalty, Leo, I said. Sometimes it's worth more than capital. Leo grinned. Adler is about to get wrecked. The next few days were quiet. Our backup suppliers filled the gap. Our PR team controlled the narrative, and the market remained stable. Grant's takeover of Wallace Manufacturing stalled, just as Walt had promised. But I knew Grant wouldn't give up that easily. Sure enough, Leo burst into my office again, looking grim. Cole, we got a problem. The security system just flagged an intrusion attempt on our core source code repository. My eyes narrowed. Here we go. Conventional warfare failed, so now he's resorting to espionage. Do we know who it is? The IP is internal. Tech is tracing it to a specific workstation right now. It's got to be a mole. Leo's jaw was tight. Don't catch him yet, I said, a cold smile touching my lips. He wants something? Let's give him something. Leo, go down to Tech personally. I want you to work with them to deploy the bait. The bait was a file. It looked like our most critical, heavily encrypted intellectual property. In reality, it was a useless decoy embedded with a sophisticated tracking beacon. Make it look real, I instructed. Make him think he pulled off the heist of the century. Leo's eyes lit up. Cole, this is some next-level spy movie shit. You don't play by the rules when you're fighting a snake. A few hours later, Leo sent a text. Holy shit. Fish on. The decoy code had been copied. The tracker showed the data package being funneled through a series of relays before landing on a server registered to Grant Adler's firm. At the same time, my tech team identified the mole, a quiet, junior programmer who joined the company a few months ago. We had him. I picked up my phone. Leo, get legal on the line and call the police. Bring all the evidence. And give a heads up to our contacts at the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg. It's time to go public. Grant, you thought you were playing chess, but you were playing against a grandmaster who owned the board. The next day, the news exploded. Shocker, prominent venture capitalist implicated in corporate espionage faces federal charges. Inside job, a tech giant unmasks widespread conspiracy. The evidence was irrefutable. We had logs of Grant's attempts to decrypt the decoy code, combined with Walt Wallace's damning audio recordings. He was toast. His firm's stock plummeted. The board issued an emergency statement, suspending Grant of all duties and launching an internal investigation. The rats started jumping from the sinking ship. The powerful friends and connections that had surrounded him vanished overnight. I stared at the news reports, at the paparazzi photos of a haggard-looking Grant, and felt nothing. This was just the cost of doing business. My phone vibrated. I froze when I saw the caller ID. Evelyn. Why was she calling me? I took a deep breath and answered. Cole. Her voice was as cool as ever, but maybe, just maybe, with a little less frost on it. Hey, I saw the news. She paused. Grant. He approached me a while back. He was fishing, trying to get information about some of our lab's unpublished research. He called it a potential collaboration. I turned him down. I have an email exchange saved. I thought, it might be useful to you. I was floored. I never expected this. I'm not doing this to help you, she added quickly, as if reading my mind. I'm doing it to protect the integrity of the scientific process. I won't have my work tainted by people like him. Then her tone shifted, a subtle, almost imperceptible note of satisfaction creeping in. But if it happens to help you settle a score, I don't object. I couldn't help but smile at her stubborn pride. Thank you, Evelyn. That evidence is huge. The line was silent for a few seconds. Okay, she said, and hung up. I put down the phone, my mind racing. She said it wasn't to help me, right? And I totally believed her. Grant's fall was swift and total. He was facing serious prison time, and his reputation was in ashes. His firm, desperate to distance themselves, cut him loose and even reached out to me, seeking a truce. I was not in a forgiving mood. In business, you don't just defeat your enemies. You salt the earth where they stood. I used the opportunity to solidify my partnership with Walt Wallace and acquire some of Grant's most valuable distressed assets for pennies on the dollar, poaching a few of his best people in the process. A major government technology grant that Grant had snatched away from me earlier in the year was quietly redirected back to my company. My star had never been brighter. Suddenly, my social calendar was full. At every dinner and every event, there were women, polished, beautiful, ambitious women, making a play. The CEO of a partner company who suggested we could form a deeper strategic alliance. A stunning heiress just back from London who made her interest clear. At one cocktail party, a famous actress in a ridiculously tight red dress made a beeline for me, a predatory smile on her face. I instinctively recoiled, about to brush her off, when I saw a flicker of movement by the entrance. Evelyn. She was here, talking with a group of academics who were attending the same summit. Her eyes met mine for a split second, taking in the scene with the actress, before her face went blank and she turned away. A ridiculous knot of panic tightened in my chest. I immediately sidestepped the actress, cutting her off mid-sentence. "Excuse me," I said, my tone polite but final, and walked in the opposite direction. Leo materialized at my elbow, waggling his eyebrows. Well, somebody's popular. Get lost," I grumbled. "Hey, I think Dr. Reed saw that little encounter." "I know. Her expression. Let's just say it could freeze helium." I sighed. The war might be over, but I was a long way from winning the peace. In the weeks that followed, I cleared my schedule. I turned down the endless invitations and started reading the industry reports I used to ignore. I forced myself through abstracts of scientific papers in fields I barely understood. I even signed up for an online executive leadership course. On weekends, I swapped late-night bars for the gym and documentaries. I had to be better, not to be worthy of her, but to stand on the same level, to speak a language she could understand and respect. One night, I was reading a pop science article about quantum entanglement. I barely grasped it, but the concept fascinated me. On a whim, I took a picture of the paragraph and sent it to Evelyn. I added a text, reading about quantum entanglement. It's way over my head, but it kind of feels like I stopped, feeling like an idiot. I almost deleted it, but it was too late. A long time passed, so long I was sure she was going to ignore it. Then my phone lit up. A message from Evelyn. It was a single word. Like us. Two particles linked. No matter how far apart we were, if one of us changed, the other felt it instantly. A connection that defied space and time. I typed all that out, cringed at how cheesy it sounded, and deleted it. In the end, I just sent back 2 words, cosmic coincidence. Then I tossed my phone aside and stared at the ceiling, my mind buzzing. She'd replied. She'd asked a question. Was this it? Was the ice finally starting to crack? A few weeks later, the dust settled. Grant Adler was convicted on multiple counts of corporate espionage and conspiracy. With his plea deal, he was going away for a long time. His backers took a massive hit, and his firm was carved up and sold for parts. The business world moved on. With Grant out of the picture, my company's growth went into overdrive. We solidified our technological lead, expanded our market share, and closed a new round of funding that was so large it made headlines. Our valuation skyrocketed. We were officially a unicorn. It wasn't long before Fortune came calling. They wanted a cover story. The title they chose was Cole Hayes, the disruptor who rewrote the rules. The photo showed me in a bespoke suit, looking out from my office at the Manhattan skyline, projecting an aura of calm, ruthless competence. I looked like I owned the world. Leo held up the magazine, shaking his head in awe. "Dude, you're not just a bachelor anymore. You're a national strategic asset." I just grunted, my only thought being, I wonder if Evelyn will see this. What will she think? Right when I was at the peak of my professional life, my phone rang. It was one of Evelyn's junior researchers. Her voice was choked with panic. "Mr. Hayes, Dr. Reed." She collapsed. "We're at the hospital." My brain went blank. The world dissolved into a high-pitched ringing. The multi-million-dollar contract in my hand was crushed into a useless ball of paper. "Which hospital? Is she okay?" "I'm on my way." I grabbed my keys and sprinted out of the office, leaving a trail of confused executives in my wake. To hell with the funding, to hell with the cover story, to hell with all of it. I broke every speed limit getting to Lenox Hill. In her room, Evelyn lay on the bed, pale and still, and 4 drip in her arm. She looked so fragile, so much smaller than I remembered. Seeing her like that felt like a physical blow, a fist closing around my heart and squeezing. The doctor said it was acute gastritis brought on by exhaustion, stress, and dehydration. A body pushed beyond its limits. She just needed rest. I told Leo to clear my calendar indefinitely, turn off my phone, and sat by her bed. When she was asleep, Her brow was still furrowed. I clumsily tucked the blanket around her, then went to get a warm, damp cloth to wipe her forehead, my movements tentative, terrified of waking her. When she finally opened her eyes, she found me sitting there, butchering an apple. The peel kept breaking. She stared for a moment. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice raspy. "Came to see you." I cut the mangled apple into small, uneven chunks and offered her a piece. She didn't take it. She just watched me, her gaze unreadable. The only sound in the room was the steady drip of the four. After a long silence, she spoke, her voice clear now, tinged with a scientist's need for data. "Cole, why are you doing all this? What's your objective? Is it penance? Or pride?" I put down the knife and met her gaze. "Both," I said, my voice raw with honesty. "Penance for being an idiot back then. Pride because I can't stand the thought of losing you." I paused, gathering my courage, and looked her straight in the eye. "But it's more than that. I finally get it now. Love isn't about possession. It's about wanting you to be your best self. It's about wanting to stand next to you and see the world the way you see it. I didn't deserve that chance before, but I'm hoping to earn it now. I'm not going to try and drag you into my world anymore, Evelyn. I'm not going to ask you to sacrifice anything for me. I just want to step into yours. I want to understand the stars you're chasing. And maybe, if you'll let me, I can help build the telescope." Evelyn's eyes welled up. She turned her head, looking out the window. The room fell silent again, but the tension was gone. After a long moment, she took a shaky breath and turned back to me. "Cole, I haven't forgotten the past. I haven't forgiven all of it. The way you acted back then, it hurt. You have no idea. The number of times you made me cry was higher than my failed experiment rate. Do you know what a high bar that is?" For the first time, she was laying the old wounds bare. My chest ached. "I'm sorry," I whispered. It was all I could say. She shook her head, her expression softening. "But I've seen how you've changed. Your trajectory. It's like a data set. There was a steep drop, but the recovery curve is impressive. And the data doesn't lie." She took a breath. "I know about all of it. The anonymous Grant. The replacement part. What happened with Grant?" "Thank you." My heart stopped. She knew, but she hesitated, her brow furrowing again. I held my breath, waiting. She just shook her head. "Get some rest. We'll talk about everything else later." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. It was more hope than I'd had in a decade. A grin threatened to split my face, but I fought it down, keeping my expression calm. "You got it. Rest is the most important thing." I picked up the hospital menu. "So, what are you in a mood for?" "I'll go get it." My tone was as natural as if we'd never been apart. After Evelyn was discharged, our relationship entered a strange, delicate new phase. We were separated by a thin veil of uncertainty, but the wall of ice was gone. I gave her space, pulling back from the full-court press. I just happened to be driving by her lab when she was working late. I'd forward her links to interesting articles or new research I stumbled upon. When her team needed a resource or a technical consultant for something non-critical, I'd quietly make it happen. I walked a tightrope of helpful, but not overbearing. Winning her back was like trying to solve a complex algorithm. Brute force wouldn't work. I had to find the optimal path. A few months later, my company hosted a major international tech summit. I invited Evelyn to be a keynote speaker. She accepted. On stage, I laid out my company's vision for the future. During the Q&A, a plant from a competitor asked a sharply worded question, attacking a potential vulnerability in our technical roadmap, clearly trying to embarrass me. I was about to respond when Evelyn stood up and took the microphone. She was wearing a chic, tailored white pantsuit, looking utterly commanding. "That's a valid point," she said, her voice calm and clear, instantly capturing the room's attention. "However, your question overlooks the iterative nature of technology in real-world applications. The architecture Mr. Hayes just described has specifically built-in flexibility for that iteration. It accounts for the next 3 to 5 years of technological evolution. From a research perspective, I find it incredibly forward-thinking." In a few sentences, she had not only dismantled the attack, but had also professionally endorsed my entire strategy. The auditorium was silent for a beat, then erupted in applause. I looked at her, and she was looking right back at me. We shared a smile, and for a second, it was like we were back in the high school library, working on a project perfectly in sync. After the session, she walked up to me. "You did well up there," she said with a small nod. "But that predictive model you mentioned, it could be optimized. We should discuss it sometime." I stared at her, my heart rate accelerating. Was she asking me out? Under the guise of an academic discussion. I nodded, maybe a little too eagerly. "Yeah, absolutely. I'm free anytime." She wanted to discuss algorithms with me. This was a sign, a signal from the universe. I needed to go home and dig out my old calculus textbooks. That line, "we should discuss it sometime," was like a shot of pure adrenaline. I immediately booked a table at a quiet, elegant restaurant in the West Village, a place perfect for an in-depth academic discussion. My mind, however, was running a completely different set of calculations. A discussion was fine, but if the mood was right, some things needed to be said. I even came prepared with a gift. Not a cliché diamond, but a custom-made fountain pen. The cap was micro-engraved with the molecular formula of a compound central to her research. It was personal, subtle, and I was ridiculously proud of it. The restaurant was dimly lit, soft jazz playing in the background. Evelyn arrived, still in the white pantsuit, but looking more relaxed than she had at the summit. We talked about the predictive model, debating optimization paths and potential applications. Her mind was a thing of beauty, sharp, logical, and breathtakingly brilliant. I was doing my best to keep up, feeling like a C student trying to impress the valedictorian, but mostly I was just in awe. As the conversation flowed, I felt the moment approaching. I cleared my throat, my hand casually drifting toward the pen box in my jacket pocket. This was it. "Evelyn, there's something Cole," she cut me off, her eyes fixed on mine with a sudden intensity. "Before you say anything, I want you to look at this." She pulled a document from her briefcase and slid it across the table. It was not what I was expecting. The cover read, "Project Chimera, a proposal for a cross-disciplinary research and commercialization initiative." I blinked. What was happening? I opened the file and began to read. The more I read, the more stunned I became. It was an audacious, almost fantastical concept, but the underlying science was sound and the market potential was staggering. The technological hurdles were immense. The resources required were monumental. This wasn't a conversation about us. She was handing me a blueprint to change the world. She was watching me, her eyes shining with a familiar light, the fierce passion of a true believer, the thrill of discovery. I looked up from the proposal, speechless. The pen box in my pocket suddenly felt heavy and out of place. I have a romantic gift ready, and you hand me a business plan? Seeing the dumbfounded look on my face, Evelyn's lips twitched in a ghost of a smile. "This project requires a massive amount of commercial data and a partner with the infrastructure to scale it. I've run the numbers. Your company is the optimal choice." She spoke with the cool objectivity of a scientist stating a fact. "Feelings are important, Cole, but we can be more than just our feelings. If this works, its impact will be far greater than just the two of us." She leaned forward slightly, her gaze locking onto mine. "So, are you willing to take the gamble with me?" I took a deep breath, pushing the proposal aside and letting go of the script I'd had in my head. I looked at the fire in her eyes, and a slow grin spread across my face. "So, what you're really saying is, you want me to be your partner?" She raised an eyebrow. "That's the word, yes." I put the unopened gift back in my pocket and picked up the proposal again, reading it with new eyes. A fire I hadn't felt in years ignited in my gut. "This is insane," I said, my mind already shifting into CEO mode. "The risk is off the charts, but the payoff." I looked up at her. "I love it. I agree with your market entry point, but your user profiles are too broad. We'll need to run some models. And this core theoretical assumption needs more experimental validation. We can run development and research tracks in parallel." Evelyn jumped right in, her insights complementing mine perfectly. The romantic atmosphere of the restaurant evaporated, replaced by the electric crackle of two minds colliding. The waiter approached our table several times, only to retreat in the face of our intense, rapid-fire exchange. Dinner wasn't nearly enough time. We decamped to my office. The lights of the conference room blazed to life. I called in Leo and a few of my key team leaders. Soon, the whiteboards were covered in equations, flowcharts, and market diagrams. Leo, yawning, typed furiously on his laptop, muttering under his breath, "Am I witnessing history? Tech God and Science Goddess team up to save the world, and maybe fall in love." No one paid him any attention. Evelyn and I worked in perfect sync. Her scientific vision pointed the way, and my business acumen built the road. It was a partnership, a fusion of two worlds, and it felt more profound, more exhilarating than any simple courtship ever could. As the first hint of dawn colored the sky, a more robust, actionable version of the project plan was complete. The room smelled of stale coffee and boundless ambition. Evelyn looked at me, her eyes tired but bright. She smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that reached her eyes. "Well, I'd say we make a pretty good team, partner." I smiled back, feeling more grounded and alive than I had in a decade. "So, Dr. Reed," I said, my voice soft, "as your new partner, would it be out of line to ask if I can buy you breakfast?" She nodded, stretching. "Okay, but I want to go to that old diner on Lex." The one that's open 24/7. I froze for a second, then my smile deepened. That diner was just a block away from the old deli that had served the matzo ball soup. We walked out of the office building together, side by side. The early morning sun washed over us, warm and promising. So, I asked as we walked, "How do you take your coffee?" "Black," she said without hesitation, "and with a side of whatever you're having." I had no idea what the future held. But in that moment, the sun was shining, she was beside me, and we were about to do something incredible together. And that was more than enough.